Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today we're going to get fancy. We're going to look at super fancy comics, so fancy that they're produced and put out by Louis Vuitton. This is part of Louis Vuitton's travel book series that I became aware of when I did the review of Jiro Taniguchi's Venice that was put out by Fanfare Pompemon. They did an English translation of the Jiro Taniguchi book from this series. So I'm assuming you can get that same book in this hardcover format that fits the Louis Vuitton series. But that got me looking at what other artists are part of this, and I found two that I really like, so I'm going to do a separate video for each one. And I'm going to try and do a pretty thorough flip through of this. I usually don't like to show everything in a book because I want people to go buy it, but I think this is a item that you can't really get a hold of anymore. I had to pay it wasn't too expensive. I think it was about $60 to get one of these, but these are definitely things that seem to be out of print. I had to get them from a Books used bookstore. But this is François Schuiten with Sylvain Tesson. And this is a funny one because the Louis Vuitton travel books are taking artists from their country that they live in and sending them somewhere else to basically make a travel diary, sketches, whatever they want to make out of it. The two that I've seen so far are definitely narrative. I'm not sure that they're all narrative, but this one definitely has a narrative component, and obviously the Taniguchi one did as well. But this one's particularly funny because François Schuiten is headed to Mars, which obviously means that this entire book is utterly fictional, which is just a funny switch up on the idea here. And given that Schuiten is well known for his obscure cities and cities of the fantastic, his ability to create completely fictional environments, he seems like the absolute perfect person to be doing this. So even though these are all either one-page splashes or two-page spreads in this book, it's still very, very narrative. It starts with 3 images that you can see are set here on Earth. We've got Japan. This looks like a beach in Florida with trash all over it. And then here, just a gridlock city. So you get the sense that this is a book where they're critiquing, like basically saying where we're at now, where we're wrecking our planet and we got to go looking for other planets. The book is in French. Luckily, there's not much, there's no dialogue in it. There are some places I'll show you later that I'm unable to read what's going on, and definitely diminished my ability to, get the whole story out of it. But I think Schuiten's a good enough artist that, good enough storyteller that I can totally tell what's going on. So it's broken into sections. This one's obviously the arrival. Up here they have first jour, which I believe means first day. And that's on every page in the book. Every splash you get like this is day 2. And what you're seeing here is basically Elon Musk's wet dream of getting back to his lizard person home planet of Mars and setting up a colony. Now, the other thing that's really, really cool about this book, besides obviously Schuiten's amazing, these look like color pencil, maybe some pastels mixed in. I think he mostly uses watercolor and color pencils. I mean, just absolutely amazing illustrations, beautiful colors, gorgeous all the way throughout. You also get these inserts that are printed in a single color, and you get his typical line work, very etching, engraving type of style line work. And these are journal entries from, I'm assuming it's in French, so I can't read it, but I'm assuming this is from one of the settlers that's settling on Mars. And you get these really, really beautifully reproduced in kind of this like dark bluish color ink illustrations that are more typical of what you would expect from Schuiten's pen and ink style. And so there's definitely a story being told in these little inserts that I can't get access to because it's in French, and I'm not going to sit there and translate the whole thing on Google. But the storytelling is clear enough just in these images. So you basically, that's the setup of the book, is you have these settlers on Mars, and it's just page after page. Now they've arrived, now they're going to go exploring, and they stay here for I think about 160 days, if I remember. The colors in this is so amazing. This orange against these like pinky purples everywhere. For people who are fans of Schuiten's artwork, this is, I think, an absolute must-have. The reproduction on this is stunning. It's really, really nice thick paper. You can see it's got this silver coating on the inside. There's also to make it look like a sketchbook, and this is actually funny because I was just telling Sean like a week ago that when I make Bound, I want it to have one of these. It's basically got like a moleskin type of sketchbook where you've got this elastic band to close it. I don't know if all of them have that. We'll see when I get the Lorenzo Mattotti one, which is the other one that I ordered from the Louis Vuitton series. Not the. I don't know if the Jiro Taniguchi is the only one that has been published outside of this format or not. I'd be really curious. Didn't see anything when I was searching around suggesting there's an English translation of this. And if somebody wanted to do that, I would definitely be willing to throw down money to have a second copy of this in English. But if you're a fan of Schuiten's artwork, if you're a fan of science fiction artwork, if you're just a fan of beautiful artwork in general, this is kind of a must-have book. And I've been fans of the obscure cities stuff for a long, long time, since the late 90s, early 2000s. I forget exactly when I came across those books, but the old MBM publications of those really blew my mind. So as someone who's a huge fan of this artist and would kind of like to have a complete collection, this was really, really a must-have for me. And I would say anyone else that's a fan of Schuiten and the obscure cities, to get this much of his color pencil work is a real treat. I know some of his books are in color. A lot of them are in black and white, though. And I love his black and white stuff, too. But just some of these images. And you know that there must be some reference going on in this, but also, I mean, this is highly imaginative stuff with these people on Mars with all of their vehicles. Stunning compositions throughout. It's really, just a chance for someone who normally does architectural work to go and do a bunch of landscapes. And I think you could see like him enjoying that in these. There's just this real joy in all of these illustrations. They're just so subtle and beautiful. And at this point, I'm just talking so I can keep flipping. It's got a nice little ribbon here. So just a stunningly produced book all the way through. You could see they're changing paper color on these inserts. I mean, it really just feels like an art object. This is the kind of thing that I would love to be making. I really think that books that are treated this well, I know they're more expensive, but they justify themselves as objects. Whereas I feel like a lot of comics that I pick up these days, I could probably read them digitally and really not suffer much loss of the experience, if any, with the experience of the book. But a book like this just feels so preciously made and thoughtfully crafted. Another thing that I really like about this book that helps it feel like the Moleskine journals and things like that as well are these like die-cut rounded corners, and the rounded corners on the edges here. That was another thing I was kind of thinking about for Bound. I'm still unsure about it. Probably the pages inside won't be, but I think I like that on the outside quite a bit. So it's really nice to get my hands. I really like Magnetic Press has those as well on their books, and I really like that look. I've never seen one where that translates over onto the inside pages, and I quite like that. It just feels, I don't know, like safer, like they're not going to get bent or something. And I've always liked a good rounded cornered rectangle. This is, I think, narratively the most interesting sequence. This is, I'm assuming, the discovery. So you see that they're going into this cave, and then in the journal, normally the journal sequences seem to just harken back to other things earlier in the book. This sequence, the journal entry, really becomes a part of the narrative, and so this is part of the really clever like storytelling comics aspect of this book. Is as they go into the cave, then you go to the pen and ink illustration that's in the journal recounting what they found. And I'm really bummed that I can't read this section. So you have this sequence now where you're jumping to one of the settlers' journals, and they're going in and discovering these crystals, and you see them helping each other in there. And then you pick back up with them down in the cave, and you now see them further exploring the cave and finding the crystals in color. Again, just these amazing compositions where he's playing with abstraction quite a bit. This reminds me a lot of what he did in the book. I'm gonna blank. Fever and Urbican. The way that they have all those diagonal buildings in that one. So that's probably my favorite sequence in the book. Just the combination of the journal and everything. As it goes, they start to build a city. I'm gonna jump now, but you get some really amazing architectural images, which is what I associate Schuiten with. As a trained architect, he brings that into his art and designs these amazing buildings. What a blessing that we have a guy with this kind of training and background who could be designing future cities for the world, and he's making comics. Maybe it's not a blessing. Maybe we should be having him building these hanging garden cities for us in the real world. So you do get some of that, what you want out of Schweden, which is the amazing imaginative cities. It's all in color. Here we get one of these journals now that's printed on the blue, so it's giving this nighttime glow to it. Just all throughout, all kinds of cool stuff. These faces, and this is all on night 160, and then it goes by hour. Hour 3:45 minutes, and that's kind of how the book ends. The I think really tragic implication of this book overall is that humans are going to, wherever we go, we're going to move to Mars, to try and get over how we've ruined the Earth. But really, we're just going to go set up and build a city, and you can see us starting to ruin the planet here as we pull back from all of this construction going on. So even for a book that I can't read, Schuiten is such an amazing storyteller, and his collaborator, sorry, I forget her name, Sylvain Tesson, really, really worked together to pick the exact right images for this book to still land its point in single images, page by page, without even any dialogue. So it's not your standard comic, but it really is narrative art at its peak. And I also think like just book design and bookmaking at its peak. Obviously, I got a used copy, so it's a little beat up on the back, but it's got this nice fabric, all this silver on it. It feels, like couture, high fashion comics, and wow, like how cool is that Louis Vuitton's out there working with famous illustrators and famous comic artists to make these books. If they weren't so freaking expensive and so hard to get a hold of, I would get all of them. It looks like there's 20 or 30 of these things. So it's a really, really stunning. I don't know if they're still doing these. Man, the people who get to do this are super lucky, except for Schuiten, because as far as I can tell, Louis Vuitton is also paying for their trips and stuff. So I don't know how you get to be part of that, but you got to be a hell of a lot better artist than I am, that's for sure. Because the people they have are Schuiten, Jiro Taniguchi, Lorenzo Matodi. I mean, absolute peak comic artists and peak illustrators. So a very cool series, something for you all to go check out. See if there's an artist, your favorite artist, and maybe you can grab one of these. I'd highly recommend it if you can afford it. I think it was like $60-$70 to get this thing.